With the release of Claude 3.7 Sonnet and Cursor 0.46 on the same day, I thought it would be fun to kind of do a little bit of a project here. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building a Slack clone with the new model and with the new cursor update. So we're going to jump right into this thing. I'm going to use the Shad CN CLI to start literally from a blank project here. And we're going to try and see how far we can get. I'm not sure how far we're going to go, but we're just going to kind of roll with it and see where things take us. So, like I said, in a lot of my videos, I'll normally start from my open source starter template. Again, this is completely open source free. This isn't like a promo or anything. We're not going to be doing that here. I just want to show you what it's like to start a project completely, like literally completely from scratch with the new model and with the new cursor update, which looks really beautiful, by the way, cursor team. So let's go ahead and we're just going to initialize a Git repository here. I'll just do a private one for now. We're going to open that in GitHub, of course. I'll drag that in here. And we're going to be using Git. Of course, guys, Git, even though the checkpoint features within Cursor Agent are great, it's great to use version control as well. So we want to open up a terminal here. We want to get our initial packages probably installed. In fact, I probably could have even done this. Does this do this as part of the Shad CN setup? I don't know. Let's actually just do npm run dev just to make sure that this thing is working. This is going to be what we need for our front end. And while that actually boots up, let's go back really quick to localhost 3000. While that boots up, I'm actually going to create a new Supabase project. I'm going to copy that password here. I'll save that off screen for a sec because I want to show you we're literally doing everything from scratch here. So we will be doing front end and back end. We're not going to do authentication or payments. I have so many other videos that do that. We just kind of want to get Cursor Agent with the new Claude 3.7 Sonnet model. We want to just kind of experiment and see what's possible. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to start with a little bit of ideation. So I'm going to go grab this prompt we have on takeoff. We're going to need actually the request prompt, and we'll probably want the planner prompt as well. So we're going to grab this prompt. This is totally free. If you guys want to snag that URL, feel free. But what we're going to do is we're going to paste this into Sonnet. Actually, give me one sec. I'm going to create a new Obsidian file for this. We're going to call this Slack clone request prompt. And Slack clone, this is off screen. I'm going to drag it in here. Okay, so what we are going to do, we're going to paste this prompt in, and I just need to go ahead and add the idea here. I'm going to use Flow Voice just to do speech, text-to-speech here. So we're looking to build a Slack clone, so help me come up with kind of our feature list here. Okay, we're going to grab the entire thing. I'm going to move that to my other monitor, and we're going to send this to the new 3.7 model in Claude on actual Claude.ai. So what we're doing here is we're basically going to be working with Claude here for our features here. So let's say, okay, just call it Slack clone. Don't worry about target audience. We want both channels and DMs for sure. No real time, no file share. Definitely message threading. Definitely search. Yes on noties, no on profiles RN because no users or auth. What else did it say? Let's make it responsive by default. Just see what the styling is. Mostly just a clone. Mostly just a one-to-one clone. Speed run type deal here. Haha. No integrations. Next.js with Supabase, Postgres, Drizzle. We'll even include Tailwind and Shadcn in here. And we'll send this off. And now Claude should respond with some very basic kind of requests here. Okay, so create join channel, yes. View message channel history, yes. Message individual users, yes. Conversation history, yes. Reply, threads, search, notifications, responsiveness, general text stack. Okay, so this is perfect. And now what we're going to do next is we're just going to copy. There's a request. We're going to put it in here because we're going to need this. And then I'm going to drag that off again. And now we're going to go grab this planner prompt. I'm going to copy this guy in. And this is going to be a little bit different than my normal workflow. So normally I'll actually grab project rules, tech spec, and a starter template like I was saying. That's not going to apply here. So we're going to get rid of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to do Slack clone. We'll get rid of that, simplify a little bit, paste this between these XML tags, and now we're going to get a step-by-step plan back from Claude. And we can edit that plan once it gives it back to us. Okay, so we're going to copy this entire thing, go to a new Claude instance here, send this off, and we're going to let this thing go to work. You're supposed to do the plan. Okay, so we should get a step-by-step plan here. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Don't include already done steps. Start from what we have. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open this up in repo prompt. So I'm doing that off screen. I'll bring it in here to show you guys what I'm doing here. So we are going to have our Slack clone here. We're going to actually want to create a repo ignore file really quick. And then we're going to want to do project specific files. And we're going to want to ignore the public directory. We're going to want to ignore .unity.local. And we're going to want to ignore our favicon.ico. And we should be able to go back to repo prompt, select all, refresh. We're going to sort from high to low tokens. This should be, let me just test this. Okay, it doesn't look like I got my favicon. It's because I did .favicon. Refresh that. Perfect. Now we're going to grab all of that code from what we just installed with the Shadcn CLI. Steps, we'll say steps must go in order that we need to complete them in. Reminder, we have a Shadcn. Oh, you know what? Let's actually do this, guys. We're going to actually go grab, the only thing that we are going to do is I'm just going to grab for my template the drizzle code here. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to create an actions folder here. We're going to create a DB folder here. We're going to create a db.ts file here and a drizzle.config.ts file here. So this is just basic boilerplate stuff, nothing fancy here. We are going to paste that in. We have no tables yet. We're going to want to grab that drizzle config code. And then we need a .env.local file. And this needs to be database_URL. And our Supabase project should be all set up by now. So we can click connect, go to ORMs, go to drizzle. We're going to grab this snippet right here, paste that in. And what I can do next is go grab that database password, which I will delete this project before I post this so nobody can steal that. And we're going to do our first agent instance. We're going to do /add open editors, create the npm I command for missing packages. This is going to get .uv, drizzle kit, all that good stuff. And then the only other thing we need to do here is in our scripts, we need to do exactly this, except add npx there. And we're just going to say, we'll make a init db commit. And then I'm just going to need to go bring repo prompt back in here. Okay, we're going to select all this code, refresh that, hit the copy button, drag that off for now. And now we're going to go back to Claude. Here's current code. And we're going to resend this with a little bit more context that Claude can work with to properly format our steps. Okay, so let's close a couple of these links. Let's clean up here. We can even close this chat. Okay, so what's happening right now is Claude is basically generating a step-by-step plan here that we're going to want to follow to actually build out the Slack clone. So you can see this is about 15 steps or so. So what we're going to do is we're quite literally just going to copy all of this. And I'm going to paste it into my Obsidian editor here. And we can kind of just like iterate through this plan. One thing Sonnet actually didn't do is it didn't. Okay, let's just say return as a single markdown block like the original prompt asked in that to-do format. We actually want this instead of as an artifact. We actually want it as just a markdown block here. So let's just have it write this really quick. It's going to make our lives a little bit easier here, which you will see. It's patiently writing all this stuff. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go in step by step, make sure all of the steps check out. What was the analysis it did here? Did it write code here? What in the world? That's one of my only slight little complaints is I think 3.7 Sonnet, only within the Claude app, I think it goes to artifacts a little bit too quick sometimes. I will say I love artifacts, so I'd almost rather it do that than the opposite. So maybe I'm not going to complain. It's only been out for a day, so I'm going to cut them. I'm going to cut them a little bit of slack here. Okay, so let's paste that in. Let me actually just get rid of the code block formatting. Boom. Okay, yeah, that looks a lot better. So, okay, so database schema. That's where we're going to want to start, of course. Then we're going to migrate our schema. Get our basic UI. We don't need auth. So what we actually might do is one of the weird things is that we're not going to have auth. But obviously, if you want to send messages, you need different users. So the great thing about this is we can actually tell Claude exactly that. Okay, so we need to do one more iteration of that. We're actually not doing authentication, but obviously because we're going to be needing to sort of like mock users, maybe let's do a profiles table as well. And we can almost just like add some seed data with like some fake profiles, and we'll just not do like actual authentication. Another note, we don't need to do testing, so get rid of testing stuff. And yeah, just iterate on that for the final plan. Okay, so this should basically get our plan down to what we actually want. And what's going to happen here is we're basically going to add this plan as a markdown file inside of Cursor. And we're just going to go kind of step by step, or rather probably category by category. and feed the steps to cursor agent with the new 3.7 Sonnet model. And we're just going to see what we can get done here. Okay, so we're just going to actually straight up copy this directly into cursor. And what we're going to do is we're going to say project steps.md. We're going to paste that in. I'm just going to clean this up just slightly. And let me just do one more scan. We don't need to do deployment in here. Okay, so everything looks good here. We're going to actually take advantage of .cursor/rules. And we're going to do a general.mdc rule. We're going to turn on global apply. So this is going to, this is going to apply all of these rules for every request. These rules for every request. We're going to say we are building a Slack clone. Find the steps in, and we're going to tag project steps. So what is going to happen is in every request we make to agent, because we have this toggled on, it's going to actually look into the steps. Work on whatever steps I tell you to work on, and only work on those steps at once. Once those steps are done, mark as completed, then stop. I will give you further instructions. Okay, so we're going to commit this really quick. Init steps. And now what we can do is we can go to cursor agent and we can say, let's actually bring up our steps just so we can make sure we're work on steps 1 through 2. I think that's just the database setup, and do the database step setup. And what we should be able to do here now is cursor agent with the new 3.7 Sonnet model should actually do every single thing that is outlined in these first 2 steps. So this method is really great for MVPs. This is really great for individual features. There's a lot of different stuff you can do with this. So as you can see, I didn't turn YOLO mode on. Perhaps I should have. We won't for now. YOLO mode and cursor, by the way, just automatically runs these agent codes or agent commands for you instead of me having to kind of manually confirm them. So as you can see here, the channels and profiles database schemas are getting written. Okay, so we're using Drizzle with Supabase. Okay, and this is basically just Postgres with an ORM that allows for type safety across our entire app. So everything's going to be A, type safe across the entire app, and B, very easy for the agent to look up database schemas, which is very important if you want agent features to work well in a full stack app, which is why ORMs are so killer. Okay, so you can see it's literally just going through and writing all of the schemas. It's getting this index file is presumably going to add to the database schema here next. Should add schema. Okay, so it's probably just exporting it from index. Yep. And it's going to ask us to generate the SQL migration file, which you will see right here. There's all our tables. And then it's going to give us the command for the migration, which we're going to run. And then if we go to our Supabase project here, we should magically see all those tables. Awesome. Okay. Error connecting to Anthropic. Resume, I guess. By the way, that's awesome error handling. Good job on good job on the cursor team there. That's a great way to make that experience something that would normally be absolutely terrible into something that's not a big deal at all. Interesting that it's doing a TypeScript seed file. That's kind of funny. It's basically asking us to do TypeScript execute on it. We should now have profiles seeded here. If we refresh, great. Okay. So this should mark our step as completed. Again, this is a super killer workflow for features. I use this all the time. And we're just kind of applying that for an entire MVP. So what I'll do here is I'll say steps 1 and 2 completed. I'll commit my code so that we have a nice kind of little checkpoint here. Again, very good to use version control for a lot of beginners out there. We're getting into, quote unquote vibe coding. It'll help you quite a lot. Steps 3 and 4. Let's do complete steps 3 and 4. 3 and 4 for core UI components. Okay, and we're literally just gonna work our way through the list. And what you'll connect. What you'll notice is we are going to be writing very little code, if any. Right, obviously we did some of that like boilerplate setup, but that I don't even consider that writing code. It's just like template stuff. And we're probably going to get something that looks a whole heck of a lot like a Slack clone. So right now, we got our kind of database tables set up, right? That's all connected to Supabase. We could check our schema files and see what's going on. My guess is the AI may have to make some adjustments to this as we proceed through this. But what we're doing next, we're just kind of getting our core UI components created here. For some reason, it's asking me to do this again. Interestingly, it's doing buttons, all of this manually. So here's where checkpoints come in. So we're actually going to just click reject here. And what we should be able to do is we should actually be able to go, okay, so we click stop and then restore to checkpoint. And I'm just going to say make sure to use shad cn for the ones you can. We're basically, oh, please tell me cursor's not down right now. That would really not be good. Okay, cool. Looks like just a bug. So we basically were able to reset to a checkpoint here, right within the agent UI. Killer feature of cursor. It's also what you could do with version control. The way I think about it is like commit major steps and then minor steps use checkpoints for. That's kind of how I think about it. But what's going to happen now is instead of generating all these components from scratch, we're just going to use shadcn components, which is going to save us and the AI a lot of time, which it doesn't seem to want to be doing. So we're just gonna reject this. How do I stop? So in the new cursor UI, I actually don't know how to stop. With the shad cn CLI, I'll even be a little bit more specific. I'm not entirely sure why. It's not doing it. I've literally never had this issue. That's kind of funny. This might be just a slight quirk of the new model. Maybe it thinks it can make a better component library. It's accepted. It's accepted the challenge. Okay, so specifying CLI was apparently it's don't use -ui. Done used. That's funny. Okay. No, it's shadcn. What is it? Shadcn at latest is the command. No. Don't. Yes, this is the right one. Thank you. Just create one command for all the components. I don't know why it's like freaking out on this. This is normally what you get every single time. I don't know why it's like struggling with this. I guess one of the things I'm used to is I normally have cursor rules file with front end rules that probably specify that, and we're not doing that in this project. It's been a while since I've started from like scratch and not from like template scratch, which are like two slightly different things, to be fair. So, like I was saying earlier, though, the model's only been out a day. Same with the cursor integration. So we'll give them a bit of grace here. So you can see we're doing like a sidebar component. It'll actually be able to iterate on these linter errors, which is something that's really cool about Cursor Agent. Really like that. Getting chat layout. Okay, so it's basically just building our entire UI as outlined in steps 3 and 4. Okay, so we got kind of our core components, and then we'll sort of get these, the layout, the sidebar, the header, and the chat layout. Okay, and you can see it's going to get some linter errors, but it will continually iterate on those. This is why TypeScript is so great, by the way. Not to be like a total TypeScript shill here, but TypeScript is incredible for working with LLMs. Okay, and it is marking steps as complete. And I wonder if we go to our Slack clone here. I guess technically we don't have the page yet, so we'll have to wait for that. But what we should be able to do is hit accept all, close all those, and we'll do steps 3 and 4 complete. This is 19 changes. Okay, obviously some of those were CLI, so that's not as crazy as it normally would be. And then what we'll do is we'll go to project steps, and we'll reset our agent here, and we'll say do step 5. Okay, because we're basically trying to go category by category here is sort of what I'm shooting for. So that way, like the steps it's working on are like coherent and cohesive, which should probably result in better results. And one of the cool things about Cursor Agent here is it's doing a lot more searching in the new update here, which is like much more representative of how a developer would actually work, which you would think would result in better generations. Right, because this makes sense intuitively, right? Because in order for an agent to take correct actions on your code base, it needs to be able to understand what it's actually working on. So if you reset your composer instance, it needs to like kind of load in context. It kind of has to go through this like onboarding process. And it looks like it has gotten enough context of what's going on that it can now work on step 5, which is going to be adding some of these profile management utilities here, it would appear. Makes sense as a user, I want to be able to update my profile. It's a pretty core feature. It looks like it's doing like a really lightweight auth system here with some cookie stuff. I could probably tell it to not do that. If that becomes an issue, we'll worry about that later. I'm not going to worry about that for right now. Should be creating our server actions here. So if you're not familiar with like server actions in Next.js, just think of these as like API routes, but written as functions. And all of this code executes server side, which is why they're called server actions. So it's a really nice way to, you'll see it's basically going to write all like the CRUD code, that you would see in like a typical like REST API or something. But it's going to do that in just like typical function form, which I personally think is great. And then I'll save API routes for more complex things. Okay, so we should be getting our new page here. Yeah. What are these? Are these like, is it pulling this in from, that's got to be like, okay, yeah. Some sort of API that it's using. I was like, if those are SVGs, that's kind of crazy. Okay, so let's accept all of that. We got 6 changes here. Step 5 complete. We'll sync that up. We will create our new composer instance. We'll open our steps back up. And I think this is a bigger steps, right? This is going to be steps 6 through 9. Okay, so we're going to do 4 steps. Complete steps 6 through 9 for all of the messaging steps there. Okay, and now agent is going to basically do everything in 6. Okay, so channels, messages, threading, and DMs. So it should hopefully be able to handle this just fine. Nothing here is like beyond the scope of what 3.7 Sonnet should be able to handle. So you can see it's kind of going through its onboarding here where it's going, okay, let's figure out what's going on. Right, like reading the schema of the database is obviously very helpful. I can't remember. I may have mentioned this already, but the new cursor point 0.46 update is the agent just behaves much more like a human dev. That's like one of my big takeaways from it. So you can see we're probably going to get actions for everything. So it'll be interesting to see how it works here. My guess is it's going to kind of do step 6 and then step 7 instead of doing all the actions at once, which is certainly what looks like is happening. And so you can see like passing this entire plan is so helpful to the agent because instead of just passing a singular step, it's having some context of like what it's already done and what it needs to do in the future. So like, right, this is how like you as a real human work, right? You have like kind of full context of a project in your head, and then you go into that individual step and work within that step, having the context of the broader project, which is kind of what this does. So like I was saying, I'll use this technique pretty frequently for features, and presumably with both the new cursor update and the new model update, it should be considerably better. Okay, so you can see we have the messages actions. So you can see get messages by channel ID. Like I was saying, this is like all sort of your typical like CRUD operations, just written as a server action form with drizzle syntax. So just really type safe, clean code here. Very easy to read and write. Getting some message components, which is awesome. Love to see that. All right, handle delete, handle reply, handle edit. Just doing every single thing that we would want to see. I kind of like all these. Let's be Charlie Brown. I suppose we don't have the select functionality yet. Because if we look at our project steps here, step 10 here is kind of where we're actually going to get the pages. Oops, resume. Hopefully that I was reading the the steps. Hopefully that wasn't just sitting there for a while. It looks like it disconnects every once in a while, which is fine. Again, like as long as they have a good resume UX, that's totally understandable. I've got zero problem with that. Thread actions, all of these look good. I'm really curious to see how it does on the UI, because backend code is something that previous models do quite well because it tends to be a little bit more structured. Seeing this UI will be really interesting. Part of me wonders if I properly scoped this. I suspect that I did. This should be within the realm of what the new Sonnet model here should be able to do. But yeah, like one of the things I want to point out is like, look how much we've gotten done without having to write any code, right? We're just kind of orchestrating at a high level, sort of watching it as it runs just to make sure that everything's going well, which it certainly seems to be going well. And then we're obviously going to need to manually test things. And then based on our sort of experience testing, we'll have to, direct the model and be like, okay, here's kind of what's working, here's what's not. So our jobs as software developers now we're almost just like software engineers or software orchestrators. Sorry. You can see some of the cursor XML parsing here is getting a little weird. That might be something that they have to figure out there. But see, we're on to step 9 here, right? So we're on to kind of the DMs. And this thing, I mean, this thing's just been running. We haven't had to do anything. Of course, we'll like I said, we'll have to actually test this and make sure that the code it wrote is good. But like, I mean, all of this looks like really good code. I mean, we're even getting like Zod schemas here, which is great. You can see, do we actually have that component? We might have to do like, let me just go to, where's UI? Select. See, like we don't have the select component. So I almost wonder, okay, so it's just going to generate it. This is where in like your cursor rules, you would want to do something like use shadcn components, right? That's like, you know, in that template I mentioned. Well, we could even just jump in and say, let's use shadcn for the select, right? Good use case here for a cursor rule. But we'll just, to add select. We're just going to kind of help the model out just a little bit here. So there's something about this model that really wants to use that command. It's kind of hilarious. Again, super good use case for a cursor rule. You have your front end cursor rules, and that's going to take care of that issue for every single request. So that's not like anything anyone would need to be worried about. Okay, now it's getting back on track here. Slight little detour there. So, by the way, like what you would do is you would literally, just like we did that general MDC file, you do like a front end one. So like in my open source app template here, all right, you can see like my front end rules for this template. It's like 140 lines. You do something like that. Not difficult to do. Okay, now is where we're going to want to accept that one. Now is where the fun begins. Complete step 10. And we should actually get the pages. Okay, so the pages are what's going to actually allow us to test what's been going on here. So we're going to get a homepage. We're going to get a main app layout here. We're going to get a dashboard page. We're going to get a channel page, a DM page, a thread page. Part of me is like, some of these should probably just be pop-ups, which the important thing is to get the functionality actually working first, and then you can kind of iterate on the UI stuff. I might even, just for the purpose of this video, skip these other steps because this is kind of like polished stuff, honestly. We'll see here. We'll see how far we get with step 10 here, because the point here is I just want to show like a kind of a vibe coding session. You know, like a big part of my job. So like I don't know if people know this, but like full time I have a company called Takeoff. We do a lot of like teaching people AI skills and how to code and build with AI stuff. And so a lot of people will like look at some of the stuff that's going on here, right? Like look at our full stack app course here, you know, and they'll see all these, you know, they'll see like back end auth payments and they'll get like overwhelmed. And then it's like, guys, even if you're a beginner, you don't need to like have experience to join like Takeoff or start doing like vibe coding and things. Like, look at what I'm doing here. You just need to be somebody who can think clearly and work with AI models. You know, and it's kind of like a Trojan horse for coding skills, because what happens is you get people doing things like this, and then they'll start to actually like dive into, you know, what is, you know, they'll make like a nice front end, and then they'll be like, okay, well, how do I get data to work? And it's like, okay, here, like now we'll teach you back end, right? And it's like, don't be intimidated by this stuff, guys. Like AI is so good now. You have these AI tutors that can teach you anything you want. There's never been a better time to learn. All right, and that's a big part of why I do videos like this, because it's like, you have this idea and you're like, well, I could never build like an app like Slack. And it's like, well, actually you can. Because you just tell an AI to build it for you. You break it down into steps and you do what we're doing here. And voila, you have your app. Like one of the mistakes I see people making all the time is they're like, well, AI is like doing all this code now. I shouldn't learn anymore. It's like, no. It's literally the complete opposite. Like whether you want to build software for yourself or your business or whatever, like it can be for hobby reasons. It can just be for curiosity reasons. It can be for like you actually want to make money reasons. It's like there's never been a better time to do this. It's a lot of connection issues though right now. I'm sure that'll get smoothed out over time. Like I said, hasn't even been 24 hours yet since all this stuff has been public. We don't even really like need cookies. I don't know why it's like insisting on this. I'm going to worry about it later. I'm just like letting it run. This was, you guys remember early when I was like, do mock profiles, but don't do auth. This is one of the things in my head. I was like, yeah, this could possibly take the model down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Yes, this is literally what we want. We want a hard code profile ID for testing purposes. That is literally the entire point. And again, think the issues that we're running into right here, these are mitigated by me not being lazy and making better steps and also doing cursor rules. Which, by the way, if people want like a really advanced cursor rules video, let me know. Because I could actually do that on Wednesday, which is tomorrow, I guess, at this point now. Okay, so you can see this is the profile page here. So we're basically having what? There's 6 different pages. It's now on the threads page. So this should be the last one. Yeah, this cookies thing's gonna be annoying. We actually might have to iterate on that here. We'll see. You can see this cookies in the profile.ts file. It's yelling at us. Okay, so it's going, and I'm just going to send this one more follow-up just to have it clear this up just a little bit. This will save us some headache when we actually get around to testing. Need to accept that, sorry. Come on, don't die out on me. All right, see how it's referring to Next.js 14. We're using Next.js 15, which again is a great use case for a cursor rule, but that's a little bit beyond the scope of what we're trying to do here. So we're going to kind of keep things simple. I'm going to keep the main thing here. Okay, and we're going to tell it to also simplify profile.ts because we don't need the current profile cookie thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we can do here. So we should be able to go into Charlie Brown. And then what is the page going to be for our actual chat here? Okay, so here is kind of where you get to the point of like, all right, this is where we need to, so I'm just going to set, you know what, let's actually do this. I just want to make sure this isn't like old build. This can happen sometimes when we make a lot of changes. Select your profile. Okay, so we'll just figure out where this is at. We'll actually do, we're just going to save this. We'll say step 10, just to save our progress here. We're going to send a screenshot that just says, we're going to literally do the dumbest thing here, is we're just going to send that and say, okay, we selected a profile. Now what? I'm just trying to simulate like what a beginner would experience here. We're going to just say, I'm trying to test things out right now. Don't do any steps from our list. Let's just test the app so far. So all of the profile components here, right? So what we could do is search for profile card, which is in the select profile form, right? And then it's like, okay, well, where is this component? And this component is going to be here. So one thing that's happening is we have basically two main pages, because this is a route group. So this page and this page are both the same thing. So it looks like we have two pages at the same route. This is because this Anthropic connection thing is killing me. Is a route group. And boom. Technically, this isn't what you want. Yeah, I was going to say that's not actually. Yep, it's realizing its error as it's going, which is what you'd want. It needs to fix the route itself or redo how it does this other page. There we go. So if it can get out of this issue, this will be very, very good here. Okay, so theoretically now, okay, so we have a little bit of a sidebar here. Looks like we don't have our profiles page. I thought we did. Okay, so they're okay, I see. Settings, we don't have a settings page. Okay, so if we go to general, invalid UUID, that makes sense. Random. So one of the things that we'll want to do here is we're going to want to do a little debugging. So let's go ahead and pass this error. You just tell it to fix this. I actually know exactly what this is. This is, remember how I was saying we should have specified it's Next.js 15? This is one of those quirks that changed in the Next.js 14 to 15 is that these params now need to be awaited, which isn't really in a lot of training data. This is one of the annoying quirks about some of these models, is you do in fact need cursor rules to kind of solve for some of this stuff, which to be fair is a very effective solution to this issue. But I'm going to interject here now. So what you need is to do await params, because params in Next.js 15 is a promise. So this is why I mentioned my app template earlier with the rules. I think I literally have a rule for this. Params in server pages should be awaited, right? So that's literally what this line in my cursor rule does. So normally that's not an issue for me. But you can see with one prompt here, we're getting that fixed. So one of the issues here is the mock data probably needs to be replaced with live database data at this point. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here, after we accept this, because that should take care of our error, is we do want to make sure that we actually get live data. Because the problem with the mock data, need to take a sip of water here. It's not really going to work because the data is not real. So what it should do is it should update our seed. Good stuff. That looks good. All right, so like if you were continuing to make this more advanced, of course you do things like teams and all that, but that goes beyond the scope of this. I mean, it's literally just doing what we're doing right now, but just adding more steps. Okay, update channel page, these real data. That is killer. It should hopefully ask us to run the script. I would also love if it gets rid of all this mock data, which it looks like it's doing. Yes, and it's getting the actual queries in. Boom! Exactly what we want. Run command, should get seeded successfully. And then in our Supabase, we should have a bunch of mock data now for each one of these tables, except apparently for threads, but that's fine. We could always ask for that later. Okay, it's now going in and creating channel pages. It's going to go in and create just go home really quick. Okay, channels. So these channels are now like actual channels, which like if I click in general, you can see we're getting like some double layout sidebar stuff that's very easily fixable. But if I just wanted to say hello and send this off, we should now get that. And then if I refresh this, we should get that persisting, which we do. Let's try and delete that message. Very clean, optimistic updates. I like that. We should now, if we go to messages, we should see that intro one is gone, which it is. Okay, so everything looks good. I wonder if threads works. Okay. So again, this took us to a different page. I mentioned this earlier. We'd want to adjust that. If we then went back, okay, so you can see like threads, right? This would be an area where you'd go, okay. In fact, look, why don't we literally just do that right now? So thread messages don't load. We actually probably want a new composer instance. Some of my hotkeys are getting messed up from the new update, by the way. Save. We're just going to do a lazy save commit. So thread messages don't load in the channel and display. Let's tackle that. Pretty simple. Okay, so it's going to correctly go into the channel page. Probably needs to fetch. So if we go to like the threads table here, it should have. Oh, interesting. It doesn't have a channel ID. I guess it is tied to the message. So that's fine. Because the message is then tied to a channel. It's more of a depends how you want to do the queries there. But we won't we won't talk about query optimization here. If you want your queries optimized, you just ask the LLM. Right, so like this is what like a real, quote unquote vibe code workflow looks like, right? Is we wanted the threads to jump in here and it wasn't working. So we just asked the AI to do it for us by clearly describing the problem and what we wanted, which in this case wasn't too complex. And now it is going ahead and altering things. So you can see it's now fetching those threads. It's now just working on the UI for that. You can see we're now getting that one reply correctly to Bob Johnson. And if we click on that, we now get the the UI for that. And I guess this would probably take us to that page. Great. So another thing that we can do is we can fix this. So we could do a commit here. It says fix thread bug. Fix thread bug. Now it's like, oh my goodness, like this UI looks terrible. Not a problem. New agent instance here. Screenshot of this. OMG, this looks so bad. Ag, please help me fix the issues. Okay. And you can see if we click in, you can see there's our image getting passed to the model. It's going to very obviously see that we have two sidebars here. It's going to see like, oh, this text is grayed out. It's going to see, oh, your message input down here looks nasty. It's going to basically go in, read all the code, figure out what it needs to fix, and then fix it. Very straightforward. I'm telling you, like the way it just like reads all the relevant files and like really figures out what it needs to do is very impressive. Like this is definitely one of the greater improvements I've seen. So you can see it kind of the message layout, spacing and alignment problems, sidebar and heading style, the message timestamps, need better formatting, overall spacing. I'm really hoping just by the image it can notice that there's two sidebars. That would be the ideal. But we'll see. We'll see what it does here. I like the hovers here. That's good. See, it's like tweaking spacing a little bit. Like some of these things are minor, but like, the minor stuff does add up. Oh, nice little profile. So what we can do, like especially on UI, is you can just kind of like iterate over and over. UI in particular is very easy to iterate on because it's just like so visual, right? It's like you don't have to test things. It's just very obvious. Okay, so we're now getting like channels listed. It looks like I don't think that was there before. You can see that like issue down here with the UI is resolved where that button was like kind of the wrong color text. Yeah, I would say, wouldn't you guys say this is going pretty well? Considering we're not writing a line of code and we're just orchestrating this entire thing. Okay, before we send this off, we're just going to let it finish up its request though. This is the kind of thing that just based on image input, I really want these models to be able to figure out. Because like any human looking at this can immediately spot the biggest glaring issue with this is the double sidebars. So it's one of those things that I would really like to see models and agents handling correctly. Okay. So let's just grab a new image just so it has like an understanding of where it's at. And then we'll just continue to iterate in this same agent instance here because this is still relevant to what we're doing, right? We're kind of doing all a bunch of UI work right here. Okay, sure enough, it kind of figured out what was going on here. We'll let that get fixed. And then we'll probably just want to get this to take up the full height. And then to, iron out the issue here. And then we'll be cooking. Okay, so you can see it's working on the page layout. I mean, have I written a single line of code, like other than the basic setup? I don't think I have. Which is pretty incredible. Okay. So we should probably just be able to take a screenshot one more time and we'll just get this ironed out and then test a couple of the features. We really want this full height to get used, and then we would want this to get like moved over a little bit. If we can do that, I'll be very happy. You can see it's going into the layout, which presumably is okay, this looks great. I would love for there to be a little bit more padding here on like the messages thread. That would be nice. But of course, if it can't recognize that immediately, we can just be really specific, right? This is why like prompting does matter. Because just the more clear and direct you are with the model, the better result you're gonna get. Okay, message list. Come on. Do the padding based on the image. Again, like this is something I just really want to see models get better at is can you, okay, so we got a little bit better there. You can see if we click on message list, it added horizontal padding 1, which is why that's not up to the edge anymore. Which is good. So this, I mean, this looks much more production grade than it did 5 minutes ago. That's for sure. And then it's just going to update the message item, apparently. One thing that I don't like is I don't like that you have to hover over to see the thread messages. But again, that's just something we could easily iterate on with the model. Like, this code is really good. Like, this is all like clean. It's well spaced. See, we even got a little bit more spacing, which I'm guessing happened within, we look at these classes here. Yep, you can see we're getting some of that horizontal padding, which, like I was saying, is exactly what I wanted. So if we go to random channel, okay, so we got a bug here. So this is a good use case for, are we getting the await bug again? Invalid input for UUI. So what we can do is we can just grab this. This is kind of a new issue here. And we can just say, get rid of that. So we appear to be getting this when we route to the random channel. I'm assuming it's because in so I'm not explaining to it what the error is. I actually want it to figure out what the error is on its own, which is why I stopped there. So this is like probably the last thing we'll do here, just because I'm just trying to show you what like iterating on stuff is like with the new model and with the new cursor update. So my observation is that this should be /channel/ the ID of the channel as opposed to its name. Which in practice you could just tell the model that and it would fix the issue in 2 seconds. But I'm just trying to see like, okay, can the agent actually figure out like what's going on? So it looks like, okay, it looks like it's handling links improperly. The channel links are hard-coded with string names instead of UUIDs. Boom. The agent did, in fact, figure out what was wrong. And it should now be adjusting. Man, their XML, like you can see, is doing like diff formats. They're going to have to get that ironed out a little bit. Okay, so now if we click on announcements, we should get announcements. If we get random, we should get random. Do general, we should get general. Of course, some of these pages are going to be broken just because they don't exist yet. Let's see if we could DM Bob. We've said sup to Bob. Sup, Bob? How are you? Are we getting an error? Okay. Let's, you know what? Last thing I promise, then I'll end the video. Again, this is it's kind of a new one. So we'll do DM send error, and then we'll just give the error message and we'll let AG go to work. So we just want to make sure we can DM our teammates. But this is sort of like what coding is like in 2025. And the great thing about it is like this is approachable for beginners. And not in a way of like you can teach a beginner a for loop. This is a way in which you can teach people who have never built software in their lives how to build like actual legitimate apps. Like this is, I mean, considering we didn't write a line of code ourselves and we're just kind of toying around for like, I don't know, what is this, like 45 minutes? Like this is pretty sick. Like, come on guys. Like don't get like, I see software developers who are like experienced, you know, like people like me who've been coding for like years and years. It's like, you know, I guess I'm not super experienced. I have like 6 years of experience. I learned how to code in 2019, but like just because a model's really good at something that you're good at, it doesn't mean you have to like poo-poo it to everybody else. Like this is good stuff. more people being able to access this is great. Like being like, oh, this is React slop. Like, really, man? Like, come on. The idea that anyone can create software is cool. And if you think that's dumb, you're just no fun. Okay, so theoretically, this should hopefully it worked. So let's just give this a quick refresh here. And we'll just say subbob. We'll keep it simple here. Yeah, okay, DMs work. So we didn't have to write a line of code. We literally, just, let's actually refresh this just to make sure this works. Very cool. We just sent the error message to the agent and literally just said DM send error and it fixed everything for us. Okay, so again, there's all these like pages I could sit here for hours, right? We could literally make this like as high quality as we possibly could, but I got to end this somewhere. So hopefully you guys found that somewhat interesting. It was actually less involved than I thought. In a lot of ways, we just sat here together and watched agent work, which hopefully for some of you who are intimidated by building apps are now less intimidated, and you found this empowering, because the entire point of me recording this video is to show you that you can actually build stuff that's very useful with an agent, and that you can continue to iterate, and any little idea you have, any little bug to fix you need, the models are just getting so good now, and the tools that those models are wrapped by, like Cursor, are just getting so good that the only thing and let's actually end with this. Let's end with a Karpathy tweet. The only thing separating you from all of the ideas and the dreams that you have in your head is agency. Agency greater than intelligence. You now have unlimited intelligence at your fingertips, especially when it comes to kind of full stack software development. So be somebody who acts, be somebody who takes action. You now have no more excuses. You have powerful models. You have powerful tools. Take advantage of them. I hope this was helpful in some way. See you guys later.